at about $1.5 or thereabout, $1.5 billion, and maybe also the brewery in Tanzania, Tanzania Breweries, I think also comes in at about $1.3 billion, and you come in at number 4. So what I'm trying to drive at here is that your listing is very important beyond just the local investors in Uganda, but I'm sure that investors across the region are likely to be seeing the value that MTN brings to shareholders. Now, I thought it's important to also shed some light on the mind of an investor. And since now you're going public, you're going to be facing all sorts of investors, and an investor's mind is it's a very unique place to be. Case in point, I don't know whether you follow the international markets, but we had an IPO, I think, in the US. There is a company that is planning to do electronic vehicles. I think it's called Rivian. Its market capitalization as of today is $130 billion. I think it was listed about a week ago. It has zero revenue. Okay? When I compare $130 billion in terms of market capitalization, I landed on Citigroup, which has been around for a number of years. For some of the investors abroad, I think, are familiar with the group. It has about 200,000 employees, and I think they're doing revenue of about $75 billion. But for investors, in terms of value, they are considering this to be, in terms of, they're equating the two, which sometimes is bizarre, but it happens. The point I'm trying to drive at here is that sentiment can drive real value in terms of the market. And because of that, we always come to you as management asking all sorts of questions. Some of them might be minute, but those minute questions then become something that can mean a lot of value or a lot of value destruction in that regard. So in terms of sentiment, as an investor, I thought it's important to see, or how do we digest that 2 trillion? You have primarily about 4 business lines. The biggest remains the voice, people making phone calls, which is about half of your revenue, about 1 trillion. And it is growing, not at the rate that everybody would be excited about, but it is growing. Talk to us about the revenue about voice. The follow-on questions around voice are related to how it operates, if it would operate as a standalone business in terms of growth, in terms of the regulations that are there briefly, in terms of profitability as a standalone business. Is it as profitable? As a business, are we going to invest a lot more in voice? You've talked about, I think, an alternative to Ayoba. I think as you've developed Ayoba as an alternative or to improve, revenue in terms of that direction, so that investors can appreciate that half of the revenue that the business is making, it is growing, I think, at a rate of about 5 or thereabout, 5%. So if you're generating 1 trillion in terms of revenue, an additional 5% is about 50 billion in terms of growth. So it is not small, whereas the growth rate is small, but the quantum itself is still quite commendable.
Okay, thank you. That's if you look at our revenue mix, and you're right, so voice is still over 50%. And this is key for us. Remember today, if you switched on any site, okay, your first services to be offered will be voice and mobile money. And why we still aggressively defend our voice revenues is a lot of the investment is already a sunk investment. Like we mentioned, we've been here over 23 years. So the sites are up, the technology is up, everything is in. So When we are looking at voice today, the voice revenues are great cash flow and very profitable, because our extra investment today is only extra capex, pretty much capacity. So we are only investing for capacity. We are not investing more for growth apart from the new coverage areas. Now, if you look at, let me go back to the penetration in Uganda. Today, mobile penetration is 61%. And that includes people with more than one phone. That means if you look at your real penetration, it could be pretty much below 50, probably about 40. So which means there's great potential, and that is why voice is still growing. Voice is almost like, today we're in the digital world, and many believe, including Wim, that we can do away with business cards. But it will take a while, because for voice, there's the affordability issue of a phone, and the beauty is it's now coming down. We can get good, decent, nice phones from China and Asia. And for first-time customers who've never used telecom, before they even understand what data is, they'll grab voice, they'll understand mobile money easily. So it's a great revenue stream that we defend through various CVM. And by CVM, we mean, all of us in this room have different habits in form of how we use voice. So we know how you operate, and then we know what to push you. Then we know what to give you more, what will excite you, using our BI. At the same time, we come up with different offers and various segmented value propositions to ensure that our customers are able to, enjoy voice. But we know that this is short term. In the future, people will not be buying phones because of voice. In the interim, we'll defend aggressively, grow as we move our customers onto what we call the future, which is our next revenue mix, and that's mobile money. And in Uganda, it contributes over 26%. It's a bit of a weird mix. In West Africa, where I was, it has a higher percentage. Of course, now GDP affordability becomes key. So that's why it's very important that the device game. So you have your coverage, you must have your handsets, it must be affordable, there must be education and content. In the future, people will be buying content. It's like, okay, why should I use mobile money? It's like, okay, I can use it to pay for this. So it's the end game. So mobile money has appealed a lot in Uganda, and I would say it's picking up in sub-Saharan Africa because of our way of work. And doesn't require much investment. It does not require as much capex as ordinarily you would have to invest for data. So when you look at our revenue mix, future growth over 50, reality is in the next 2-3 years, voice will be contributing less. Data and Momo are going to pick up, and believe me, it's going to pick up faster than we think because of habits. I'll give an example. Put fiber in home. I was using mobile broadband, working it at home during COVID. And, I don't know what my kids were using that data for, but it just kept disappearing. I had to even go and ask at work, can I get and see what's happening? I don't think they're studying. Convert that to fiber. You'll even beg them to watch TV because TV is old school. You see the behavioral change where kids now are playing with each other, games all online. These are your future customers. These are the 1 million extra customers that will be coming on. Now, try and send your kid an SMS or even make a voice call. You'll be lucky if they pick it or see it or read it. They don't even understand why we use voice. These are your future customers. So that's why voice is still good and great for us with Katoch and all that in the villages. But as we migrate to different phones with different content, even that old woman in the village deserves that right to enjoy data, to enjoy a movie, to watch Nigeria, Uganda, laugh, enjoy some social media, watch these, Katoruba make funny jokes and laugh. You're with me? That's the content that will be driving data growth. So we need to invest in the future, not just for the youth, even the existing, but the content must be relevant. So when you look at our overall mix, so you have your voice over, 50 that will be coming down. Mobile money and data are going to take over a massive portion, and that is going to be where the future will lie. The beauty is voice is sweet. This is sweet, good revenues today. for 23 years. What else are you investing? Only capacity. So yeah, it's great potential in the future, and we'll still fight to defend that.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Allow us to ask some questions that are coming in online. Some of them will be answered by the lead broker from Stanbic Bank, and some will definitely go to MTN. So we have Peter here asking, when should I expect credit of my IPO shares in my SCD account? What happens in case of unsubscription or oversubscription? I think Wim alluded to this. Maybe he'll give more clarity on that. Please highlight more on the information I overheard that one of the strategic ambition is to start a large digital bank for diversity. Okay.
Can we start answering a few?
Okay, we can start with that.
Yeah, so let me take that question on digital bank. I'll start with that one. So we have now a separate MTN mobile money company, okay, 100% owned. Once again, let there be no confusion about it. 100% owned by MTN Uganda, the listed company, with its own license. It has a payment, what is it called? A payment system provider and payment system operation. So it has two distinct licenses issued by the BOU with direct regulatory oversight by the BOU. So can we exclude that one day we would want to, jump further and become a bank? We can't exclude that. It's not on our immediate roadmap, but it's not something that we want to exclude because the path is there. Okay. Now that we have separated, we have a separate license, we have a separate regulator. We are now regulated as if we are a bank with the same audits, with the same fit and proper requirements for our directors. So we are getting a lot of the banking oversight and regulation and audit and checks and balances as if we are a bank. So maybe one day, we'll feel like, why don't we jump and venture into that? It is not on the roadmap today, but I don't want to exclude it. Okay, that's one. And then the other question was around oversubscription or undersubscription. I think William, as a broker, is probably better placed to go into the technicalities of what that really means and what the consequences are of either of those two scenarios.
Thank you, Wim. Again, let me just point out that Stanbic Bank has an investment arm called SBG Securities, and we are the transaction advisor and sponsoring broker for this IPO. But then there's also all the other licensed brokers, 6 of them. You can all apply your applications through them. Again, to the question of oversubscription or undersubscription, let me be very precise here. An oversubscription is a scenario when MTN receives a lot more applications in relation to the number of shares that they're offering. If you look at the prospectus, MTN is selling 4.4 billion shares. If you multiply that by 200 shillings, you will probably get close to 859 billion. Or let's just round it up to 900 billion Ugandan shillings. An oversubscription is a scenario where we get applications that go above that figure. Let's say we have 2 trillion Ugandan shillings coming in relation to the number of shares. In that scenario, then we have to find a way of allocating shares to then the individuals. And we have priorities. MTN has made sure that the individual Ugandan gets first priority. Any individual who applies through the every Ugandan who applies up to 5 million Ugandan shillings will get all the shares that they ask for. Then anything above that gets into what we call a prorata. Again, let me also break the word prorata. Prorata means then you start giving everyone 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. By that end, all your shares have probably come, to an end, and then you probably have a lot more money than you intended. What you then do is then have that refund go back to those individuals through the method in which they applied. So if you apply through your phone, you will get the refund back on your phone. If you applied through your bank, the money will be credited back to your bank, and all the charges will be paid by MTN. Another subscription is a scenario where we have few applications coming in relation to the number of shares in and of itself. and that's a very unlikely scenario. But in that particular case, the prospectus states how that should be treated, and I believe it said that if they go above 50%, then the application still goes through to the exchange, and MTN is then still listed on the Uganda Securities Exchange. And I believe in this scenario, it would be the shares that would go back to the MTN South Africa that owns those shares would then reclaim those shares for a period of time and then put them back onto the secondary market as and when demand comes going forward. I must stress 100% of MTN is listed, but 20% of it is trading on the Uganda Securities Exchange on the 6th of December. Finally, to the first question, I believe someone asked, when will my shares be credited to my SCD account? On the 3rd of December, you will be told what you have been allotted. What you're doing right now is applying. On the 3rd of December, you will be told your allotment are this number of shares. Again, if there's any refund, it will come back to your phone or your bank account. And then on the 6th of December, MTN will trade, and you'll be able to sell your shares to any individual on the secondary market.
Thank you, William and Wim, for the clarity on those two questions. So allow me to ask two more questions before we get back to our moderator. There's a burning question here where Alex thinks we are dodging. He asks, following CMA's acceptance that the approved prospectus was for MTN Uganda Limited versus MTN Uganda in brackets Limited, what's your position in this scenario? What does this mean for the investor? Thank you.
Okay, I can take that question. We are 100% at ease with that matter. The CMA has approved the prospectus, which is 100% legal, so we don't believe there's anything to worry about. Our lawyers are very clear on what the outcome is of that. So we are continuing the process because we are in fully rightful position. So nothing to worry about.
Thank you very much for that clarification. As I mentioned, I think earlier on, that investor sentiment has value, and something like that can actually change how investors perceive a potential opportunity. For the online members, I think you can continue to send through your questions as we go along. We will be taking more questions. And at this point in time, I'd want to maybe draw us back to the business. I think Andrew and Wim, you have highlighted your views on voice, which is half of your revenues. You've also, I think, touched in good shape the future of data. You are generating about 300 and something billion from the data itself. It is a growing area. The growth rate for data is about 12-15%, and you expect that to continue at least over the short to medium term. So I think everybody understands that side of data, and you've also highlighted that in terms of investment going forward, you're planning to spend about $1 trillion over the next 3 years. I am going to go on to ask whether the entire trillion is going into fiber, or are you spending some on beyond maintenance? I'm talking about new kind of equipment. I know, I think for last year you invested about 400 billion. So I wouldn't be surprised if over the next 3 years you actually invest more than $1 trillion into the network.
Oh, okay, thanks. So if you look at our data revenues, you're right, data revenues need investments. Last year, in 2020, our data revenue grew, by about 28%, of course, driven because of the pandemic. And what we had to change is, our customers moved, a lot were in town, then they moved to homes. So that even meant enhancing and increasing capacity across the country and in various homes. So, when you were asking for where is the investment going? The investment is going, obviously, fiber is just one of them. So, we have our sites that are linked with microwave, and it's cheaper and better when you link these sites with fiber, especially the sites that carry a lot of traffic. At the same time, we also have the same fiber that you link to homes, which is a new opportunity. But a lot of, the capex also goes in technology, and that's when we're talking about 3G and 4G. When we're increasing coverage to ensure that, sites that are 2G, we ensure they now have all the technology, that's 3G and 4G, and those that are 3G have 4G. That's where a lot of expansion is going. But like I mentioned, to grow data revenues, you must have devices. Then you also must have amazing offers and then content. And I think, for us, the device becomes very key. And I think what has changed and the pandemic has helped is the silver lining, where now people understand, back to the question you asked Wim about Ambition 2025, when we say that everyone deserves that benefit of a modern connected life. I mean, data is a right. We all know kids who are able to study at home because they had access to data, and those who didn't. We all now know that, I can teach kids from where I am here, even at my home in my car, to a village as far as Kisoro, just using internet and data. And we believe this is the future conversation we'll be able to have with our stakeholders, with government. It's cheap, it's affordable. You can actually even put a screen on a tree with solar and battery and teach, kids. So education will change. The beauty of, where anyone can get access today. I mean, if anyone doesn't know anything, just go to Google. You'll end up probably in YouTube. So this is where we see the growth potential. And now that requires investments. Back to your real question, why are we investing that much? You need to ensure, with the available spectrum, that you have the right number of sites, the right number of coverage, the right number of minimum speed to enjoy that experience we all want to. And that's why it's important that we invest now. If we don't get that right now, we are, to be honest, investing a bit for today and in the future. So what that means in the outer years in form of investment, we'll be investing less because in future you're upgrading capacity. The same question you asked me about voice. So next 2-3 years, we have all our sites. It's all 4G, to ensure people are able to eat and enjoy as much as possible.
Great. I have a quick follow-on. I think you had mentioned that you were looking for a little bit more spectrum. Have you obtained it? Are you at full capacity? Some players have left the market. Do you automatically get what they were using? Is it the same? Some is cheaper, some is more expensive. Briefly, without getting, I know you are engineers and you might be tempted to get a little bit more technical, but I think what the investors will probably appreciate is that you're happy with the spectrum that you have, or you're trying to acquire more.
Okay, it's a very important question because spectrum at the end of the day is our real working capital. Okay, without spectrum you can't deliver services. Okay, it's the fuel of the engine. If you buy a car and you're not capable of buying fuel, you'll go nowhere, okay, independently for whatever car you have bought. So spectrum definitely is the fuel that drives our car, drives our business. So the broadband policy of 2018, September 2018, was very clear and was actually very good. It was quite revolutionary, but it was very welcome. The broadband policy clearly states spectrum is not for sale. Spectrum belongs to all Ugandans. It is a scarce commodity, if you want, or resource, let's call it a resource, that belongs to every state because there are waves, okay? The waves are there. They don't belong to anybody. It is the UCC mandated, by the state that says I'm going to regulate and assign this particular spectrum to this particular user. The radio stations, they have their spectrum. The military have their spectrum. The police have their spectrum. The telcos have their spectrum. Okay, so the entire spectrum band is allocated and cut into bits and pieces and allocated by the UCC to whoever, can make good use of it. So spectrum is not for sale. And the regulator has been very, very, very clear and transparent and consistent about that point since the new broadband policy. In the old days, telecom companies would enter Uganda. They would pay $100,000 for a license, and they would be getting, spectrum with that license. They hardly invest anything. They build 20 sites, just to fake as if, there is actually a network. I will not put names to them, but they have been there. And then they sit and wait until they try to sell their company to MTN for $50 million. The only value that would be in that company is the spectrum that they're holding. They're holding spectrum. That practice is no longer there. And I really commend the regulator, the policymakers, for their consistency and their courage to apply that policy. So as and when operators leave the market, the spectrum that they were using goes back to the regulator. Existing operators can apply and justify. You need to be able to justify that you are going to make good use of that spectrum because it's a scarce resource. If the UCC gives it to MTN, they want to be sure that MTN is going to make good use of it, meaning it's going to contribute to the development of the telco industry, which then is going to contribute to the development of the country. So you apply for spectrum, and the regulator then assigns it to you. As long as you make good use of it, you'll be allowed to continue using it. If you don't, it's a use it or lose it policy, meaning you have applied for spectrum, the regulator has given it to you, you don't do anything with it. After 1 year, the regulator will come and say, come, give me back that spectrum because you are not a serious investor, you are not making good use of it. So in that new policy, which is really a very good policy, we paid $100 million license fee, but that is to operate in Uganda. That does not include spectrum because spectrum is free of charge. And we get spectrum from the regulator as and when we can prove that we need it. So over the last 1 year, we got additional spectrum in specific bands, and we have applied for more because the more spectrum you can use, the better quality services we can deliver. So the regulator can also not impose and say, oh, your data network speed is too low, and then at the same time not give you the resources that allow you and enable you to deliver those quality services. So in that space, we've really moved away from a few years ago where there was real trading going on in terms of buying and selling spectrum to a much more transparent and much more sane environment where operators who can prove that they're going to make good use of the spectrum, they are and they will be given that spectrum by the regulator as long as they make good use of it.
Thank you
I
very
hope it was not too technical, no?
You have done a fantastic job. The word spectrum, at some point, there are waves, but I think the investors have an idea of what is taking place because some of them probably have tried to read your prospectus, and along the way, they can see that you have an emphasis on this spectrum, but their appreciation of why it is important sometimes doesn't come through well. Now, before I move into questions around efficiencies, which are a bit more operational, that would be a bit brief. I thought we could talk about the mobile money, which you're very, very excited about. You have mentioned, and I think the numbers also tell that it is the fastest growing, in terms of revenue, it is the fastest growing area for your business. We have seen the same growth in other markets. I have the benefit of looking at many operators, and I see mobile money is really, really taking off. So I wanted us to discuss mobile money from two angles. One is we are seeing the growth, but then on the other side, there are competitors in the fintech world. Competition in that space is very, as you can imagine, mobile money is also a development from your side to, eat into maybe other businesses or improve efficiencies. Somebody else might be thinking around it or coming up with some new things. But before we get into the competitors, I think it's also important to at least take through the members what happens on the back end of mobile money, because they only see cash into the system and cash out of the system. But at the back end, there are other considerations. You have service providers, you have things that are going on. Are they expensive? Is it too complicated? What is it? Could you explain to a layman how Momo is going to revolutionize payments in Uganda and beyond even?
Okay, thank you. So when you look at mobile money today, so if we talk about the basic mobile money, so, someone goes, to, for example, our service center, and they're trying to convert real cash to electronic, old school mobile money, and they do that. Or today, we've advanced that a bit. You can move money from wallets, that's you can get from someone else who already has electronic, so that will also happen at the back end. At the same time, you can also move money from your bank account to your mobile phone or to your mobile money wallet. So now here you're just getting money into what we call the Momo ecosystem. And the traditional way of, where we would earn is, when you cash out, yes, there's some fees, but also when you pay for something or transaction, there are some fees that are charged. Now, when you look at the future of mobile money, the whole point is when you cash out, it's actually a lost opportunity. Yes, there are some fees earned, but the future will be, and which actually will lead to reduction of rates, is where you have volume of payments for everything you are making. I mean, it's, to be honest, almost trying to increase a financial inclusion, get money to be completely electronic. Now, for that to happen, there must be a need. You must say, okay, I need to pay someone, I need to pay a debt, I need to pay, my plumber, I need to pay whoever came, my gardener. And the beauty is you have a record. Even your maid can't wake up and say you haven't paid them for a whole year. It's all on record. So it's trying to create that ecosystem. Now, when we're talking about the future, at MTN, we look at it, if I can put it in 5 unicorns. The first is the one I've just explained, money in, out. The next, the one we are trying to explore and expand, and that's the payment services, what we call payments and e-commerce, what we call Momo Pay as a product. And the beauty with that is, like we mentioned in China with WeChat, then they'll just put their phone, then you put in your PIN or your facial recognition. Today, probably you don't even need the phone. You move anywhere with your face, it's already linked. So in future, it's the convenience. So we're going to get to a place we don't have to move with heavy wallets. If we're here, you need to grab a drink or eat something, you just use your phone. And to build that ecosystem means we need to expand our agent network, our merchants, make it easily affordable, and also then once we have the volume, the transactions will drop. We can also talk about briefly what you call the third icon, which is the InsurTech, insurance services again. Here you're able to get insurance, but you pay in installments. So, where back in the day, insurance was for, those who could afford. Today, that's changing. For very little money, you can have health insurance, and when that bad day comes, you're covered. Then the other key, which has been very popular and powerful today, especially during the pandemic, is what they call in Kenya, fuliza, like more cash loans. I think in Uganda, by nature, I don't say we love borrowing, but borrowing is part of our life. Even we businesses as MTN, we also borrow. Okay, it's a good thing to borrow. So these loans, I'll give an example of an everyday person. You wake up in the morning, you have your border, you have no fuel, you have no money to buy that 1 liter. You are able to borrow, buy your little fuel, run your errands, take your customers, make your margin, and pay a small fee. This can also be a skill to an everyday person like you. You wake up in the morning and you're like, oops, I don't have money to pay. I don't have enough to pay for my water or a bill or wherever you are stuck for a moment. Well, we allow you to do this electronically wherever you are. You can actually even be out of the country, can still borrow or pay for bills in your absence. This is massive because of the nature of the way we work. Credit is our way of life. Everyone borrows. Everyone gets to that moment where they need credit. So this is another area that we are going to scale massively. Then even apart from the everyday person, even merchants, I may be selling airtime or vending airtime and I don't have money, but I have customers. Why don't you allow that merchant to sell on credit? He will earn his commission and pay you back. Because someone will come and say, okay, please sell me airtime, and he's doesn't have enough cash or liquidity. So basically, we are trying to revolutionize credit using our mobile money ecosystem all across. So, and then the one I'd spoken about, remittances, you'll be surprised how much money moves between countries, trade. What digital revolution has done is remove borders. Money is moving here or there and instantly. I mean, if you remember back in the day, to receive money, you go, is it Western Union, line up and get some money? Parents sending their kids emergency money because, a bank would take a couple of days. They would use Western Union. Today, it's on your phone. So, now, back in the day, you send money to the villages. Now it's on their phone. We are telling them, don't cash out. Use the money. What do you need it for? Okay, just pay for Momo. So even in future, villages will be just paying money and people will be delivering. So that's the ecosystem. On the competition side, yes, it's like when we came up with data and before you know it, WhatsApp is on your case, or OTT for free. So yes, today, truth is, like we mentioned, Ambition 2025, where we're trying to build the largest platform. For mobile money, at the end of the day, we want to create a platform where you aggregate with different payments. So when we're talking about payments everywhere, it means you have a platform that is connecting with various vendors, various APIs. You need cafe Javas, you just tap, they deliver. So in future, people will create apps in your local neighborhood. Down there, you're home, you've run out of a couple of beers, a few apps, they deliver. You're with me. The ecosystem has to grow with that. That means different companies, different vendors connecting to your API, for that ecosystem to grow. But what does it do? Of course, there is competition. Forget, of course, the obvious one, Airtel Momo, fine. I mean, they're up. Yes, we'll compete, we'll move, but you have disruptors. There are disruptors who come and ride on your infrastructure and your customers. Competition is good and healthy, but there must be parity. So, for us here, as long as there's clear regulation, proper parity, if we're paying, taxes 0.5% on withdrawal, the same has to happen for everyone in the financial services sector. So, for us, if you have parity, then yes, if there's an additional advantage, that's where we'll have to engage, the relevant authorities or regulation to ensure it is fair competition. It's good for an industry because, we've been used to it for 23 years. It doesn't stop innovation. In any case, it keeps you awake at night. Okay, so that's very key. There must be parity, it must be fair, it must be the same level playing ground. So if you look today, we are actually very happy that central bank is now regulating us. It's no longer a Momo under telco, which could be confusing. So it's easy to engage central bank and say, okay, we are all now brothers and sisters in the entire ecosystem. We all have the same PSP, or same licenses. The regulation should be the same. And then this is the beauty now of being part of group and part of Ambition 2025, because now innovation becomes key. A platform here, a service done here or Ghana, we can replicate and localize with less or minimal investment. And we can also go across to our brothers and sisters in Nairobi, who are that's where mobile money or M-Pesa was born. And they're 2-3 years ahead of us. So, N are going to face the same competition.
Thank you very much for that clarification on mobile money. I have one question that relates to your operation in terms of efficiencies. Before then, I can come in to take some more questions from the public. This relates to your current costs. You do have outsourced a significant part of your operation. I don't know whether it was fashionable in the old days that every telecom should own a tower, but I think across the continent, everybody is moving away from each telecom building their own sites to a shared kind of service. So that is understandable. I think economies of scale is something important. I've also had the benefit of seeing some telecoms who had taken an extra step in trying to buy the telecom, the tower side of the business, and then they had to scale out of it. So in my mind, as an investor, a professional one, I think the efficiency side of things looks relatively well. So in terms of your operating margin, and I think for a layman investor, we are looking at, based on your revenue of 2 trillion, half of it is operating profit, correct? And I think the professionals call that EBITDA or something like that. But in an ideal sense, what you're selling for less what you spend to sell that service gives you an operating margin. And I think 50% is quite healthy when I compare it with a number of businesses across the continent. However, recently I think we are having a scenario where prices of things have gone up. You have suppliers. I've been on calls with bigger institutions abroad, and all of them, when they're reporting their results, they're complaining. Shipping has gone up, I think, 100%. Commodities have gone up. Fuel prices, I think, in Uganda, it's very evident at the pumps that the price is actually quite high. Is this a concern for you? Are you planning on passing on that extra cost in terms of pricing for the products?
The only pricing that never goes up in Uganda is the price of telecom. Now you can say fortunately or unfortunately, it depends whether you're already a shareholder or not. Now we're talking to customers, I suppose, and maybe future shareholders. So today as a customer, you'll say, that's good. Price will never go up. Now, once you become a shareholder, you might say, I would want the price to go up. But no, let alone the kidding around it. In 2008 or 2010, okay, the cost of 1 minute of calling was 400 Uganda shilling. Okay, 400 Uganda shilling. With that 400 Uganda shilling, you could buy half a liter of fuel. We've done the maths. You can trust me on this one. Today, with 400 shilling, you buy 10 minutes of calling, and you buy 1/10 of a liter of fuel. Okay, so basically, it has become 100 times cheaper. If you compare, with other commodities, with other consumer goods, okay, like fuel. Why is that possible that the price of voice and now also the price of data has gone down like 10 times over the last 4-5 years? Why is that possible? It's because, as you have mentioned, the economies of scale. Okay, it's a scale game. Why are there 2 profitable telcos in Uganda? Because there are only 2 who have managed to get scale. If you don't get the scale, you cannot survive. And once you have the scale, okay, as Andrew has mentioned, additional voice is basically free of charge. Your generator is running. Now, whether there are 1,000 customers using that tower or 2,000 customers, your revenue will be double with the 2,000 customers, but your generator will consume the same amount of fuel. So somehow we are not very dependent on our costing model of some of these, direct costs. Okay, of course, indirectly, it has an impact. Okay, generally, the cost of living, the cost of doing business can go up, but it's not like if fuel prices go up 10%, that we need to increase the cost of data by also 10%, otherwise we reduce our margin. It doesn't work like that, fortunately, because we have that scale. We have the scale that there is a way of absorbing some of these, price fluctuations or costs going up. They do not trickle down directly into the cost structure of our business. Ultimately, in the long term, of course, there will be an effect. And usually what we do, we have basically never increased our pricing. Our way of increasing price is to slow down the decrease. Is to take it down less fast than what we originally planned for. So instead of taking it down 10 or 15% in the next 6 months, maybe we only take it down 5%. That's our way of, increasing our price, is to slow down the decrease. And that's how we, mitigate some of these macroeconomic effects, and that's how we keep our margins very healthy.
Thank you very much. I think we have a few questions online.
Thank you, gentlemen. I already feel a lot brilliant, yeah, because of the information that has been shared today. So a few questions that are coming on online. I think this goes to the broker, which says, are Ugandan based in Kenya buying shares? Are they considered as a Ugandan for the 10 bonuses for each 100 shares bought? Or is it considered as East African for bonuses of 5 for each 100 shares bought? How do we treat a Ugandan who is out of Uganda? That was one of the questions.
Let me answer that straight away. So there are 2 distinct bonus schemes. There is one bonus scheme of 5% for every East African citizen. You're Ugandan, you're a Kenyan, you're a Tanzanian, wherever, whatever nationality in East Africa, you are entitled to 5. And if you use the MTN mobile money, the MIPO platform, to apply and pay for your shares, you are entitled to an additional 5. So it all depends. The person they're talking about, they are Ugandan, so they're entitled to 5. If they can use the MTN MIPO platform, they're entitled to the additional 5. If they go the traditional way via the bank account and the SCD, the USC portal, they will only get 5%.
Thank you. That's very clear. The other question is, how do I choose a broker? What is the role of a broker? What exactly do they do? And allow me to ask the second question so that MTN can prepare. The other one is, thank you very much. However, the use of mobile money phone platforms is not free. The deposit charges and withdrawal charges are not waived. Maybe you can give clarity on how then the MIPO is free to use. Thank you.
Again, thank you for that question. What is the role of the broker? Allow me to break down the broker into two roles. There is what we call a transactional advisor or sponsoring broker who takes on the role of helping MTN meet the requirements of the Capital Markets Authority and the Uganda Securities Exchange. If you look at the prospectus, SBG Securities is the transaction advisor. That entity helps them meet all those requirements and also does what we call the book build or the book run of going to meet institutional investors outside the country. Then we have what we call sponsoring brokers. Sponsoring brokers' roles are supposed to go out to the public and sell the story of MTN and receive these applications. In the prospectus, you will notice there are 6 licensed brokers, of which SPG is a member of. The role of a broker goes further on the securities exchange. When we cross onto the 6th of December, you will be able to trade your shares on the stock exchange. So if you choose to sell, you need to go through your broker to make that order to sell to another party. If there's another party who chooses to buy, let's say on the 30th of March, you will then need to go through a broker to make your application known through the stock exchange to buy those shares in and of itself. Finally, to the question, how do you choose a broker? Again, very different parameters could be at play. One, it could be convenience and location wherever you are. If you happen to be next to a Stanbic Bank branch, you will be able to have the service of the branch manager steer your order to SBG Securities to be able to assist you. Again, MTN has also partnered with Crescent Stock to have you walk into their MTN service centers to service you. The other element that I think you should consider when you're choosing a broker is one who is able to give you information, research over the length of a period of time. You become a wiser investor, and it's on that basis that I believe you would decide who is likely to give you research and who is going to make your information more informed. Thank you.
Okay, let me take the question on the deposits. So depositing money into the mobile money system is absolutely free of charge. You go to any agent, mobile money agent with 1 million, 2 million, 100,000, doesn't matter. Whatever amount you deposit is free of charge. Nobody should ever charge you. If they charge you, then they shouldn't go back to that agent because they are cheating you. Depositing money into the system is free of charge. Of course, what is not free of charge is a bank to wallet transaction. Going to your bank account online and drawing money from your bank into your wallet, the bank will charge you. Not MTN, but the bank will charge you. Redrawing, I don't see why. I mean, there's no need for withdrawal. You deposit money, you can go to the MTN service centers today, tomorrow morning, and on Monday. You can do 20 million cash in if you want, free of charge. You say it is for the MTN IPO. If you have opened your SCD account using your phone, you will be able to deposit up to 20 million completely free of charge onto your phone and apply and pay for 4 times 5 million shares using again your phone, again completely free of charge. And there is no need for withdrawing cash. It's to put in the money and then to use it to apply and pay for shares.
Thank you, Wim and William. There's a question here for NSSF. Can NSSF allow its savers to buy shares at MTN using part of their savings? I'll take that. Unfortunately, no, at the moment. But NSSF is committed to ensure that the savings we have, we invest them wisely and give you a very good return like we have done for the past 10 years. Then I have a question here for, I think this will go to MTN. What is the basis of allocation between individuals, institutions, and foreign investors? This question, there's another question that keeps coming up. I know you already spoke to it, but I think MTN Mobile Money is very juicy and everyone is still asking, is it still part of the IPO? Is MTN Mobile Money? I think you have an opportunity to give more clarity on that. And one last question to the broker, which says, can you please tell us, the incoming new shareholders, the challenges and risks we are bound to face by investing in the MTN IPO? Thank you.
Okay, so Well, I think maybe let's first address the obvious. MTN Mobile Money Uganda is part of the offering. So what really happened last year in September, the National Payments Act required the telcos to separate the mobile money companies to be regulated by central bank. And that had to happen within 6 months, which we all completed. It's not just only MTN, but also Airtel and others had to do the same, those that were affected. And in May this year, we were able to get our 2 operating licenses. So the company that we expect to list in December, which is MTN Uganda, owns 100% MTN Uganda mobile money. Would not be telling you here about the growth potential of mobile money. At the same time, it's not part of it. I mean, it's you just can't do that. Then just getting back to the incentives. So as maybe to explain it in a simple way, if you use your mobile phone MIPO and you apply for shares, then you'll get 10 bonus shares for for every 100 that you apply. You can call it 10%. If you do not use the MIPO, the mobile money platform, and let us say you have a competitor network, or you apply through a broker or online and you're a Ugandan, you'll still get 5 bonus shares, which is 5%. Okay. The rest of the other bonus shares will be more relevant to fund managers or other companies if they are to invest over 50 million, and they can get also the 10 or over $1 million up to 50. We'll also still get the 5, but those are for the big investment firms, the likes of Sanlam. But that's a strategy. But what's key is in the allocation, that Ugandan individuals, you and I, will have the first priority in allocation, then the big companies, then we go to individual East Africans, then East African companies, before you go to the rest of the world. So yes, we believe we have great incentives for the everyday person, and if you use mobile money, and that's why we mentioned, and when he announced even yesterday, that we are now increasing the daily limit of 5 million to now 20 million. I think yesterday was almost 3 days counting. Today it's almost 2, depending if you want to include today. It's like we have Sunday and Monday. And that's why we were able to increase the limit to 20 million. Actually, when we mentioned it, I had to start going online to make sure I don't miss out, because I've been buying every day, So that's the current scenario. Mobile money is part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Let me answer that question in regards to risk. I think what Dennis and all of us here have been talking about is the risk in relation to the company. Allow me then to touch on the risks of when you become an investor and you hold the stock. So one of the risks is, of course, price fluctuation or volatility. The forces of demand and supply on the stock market are generally just driven by how many people want to actually buy at that time, and with a collected price in and of itself. So those forces are the ones that have this price fluctuate from wherever they start. So you've started at 200 shillings. If we go into the market on the 6th of December and we have multiple people looking to buy at 250 up to 300, the price will start rising. Again, it can also be driven by the forces of supply, where there are people who are looking to probably cash out for school fees in January, and the pressure is great on them, and hence they would offer their shares at a price lesser than the 200 shillings. If there is a collective pressure for an extended period of time, that price would then hold down for until those people are exhausted or they are able to exit their positions. So price fluctuation is driven by the demand and supply of the market, and whoever has more volume to hold that price going forward. The other risk that we're also looking at is illiquidity. And I think that's a common risk that has been on the Ugandan Securities Exchange for quite some time. I think where MTN is approaching this with a novel approach is to broaden the base of number of SED accounts and applicants as in the past. As of today, I believe there are more new accounts through MTN IPO and the Easy Portal than the stock exchange has had in the last 20 years. Again, by having the broader participation of both retail, regional, and institutional investors, That allows for liquidity to come back into the market. Then MTN, of course, has got to sell its story to institutional investors, both local, regional, and internationally, so that they too come with their weights to come and buy the shares off you at a premium. So illiquidity is dealt with also having a depth in the number of investors on the market, then also the marketing of that particular stock to the willing and bigger players like Sanlam. The other risks are just generally, let's talk about dividends. Again, if the company is put in a position where it cannot actually, let's say, return a profit, that in itself will mean that either the company calls out a dividend from its retained earnings, or maybe will come to the annual general meeting and tell, ladies and gentlemen, we probably have to halt the dividend. And you most likely see it coming along the way, because MTN every 6 months should release its results to you, and which is a rule by the Capital Markets Authority and the Uganda Securities Exchange. There in itself is probably the exposure that you probably will not be given a dividend. But we would like to go with the basis that MTN has been paying dividends for the last 6 or 5 years, at least in relation to what has been published. We hope that trend actually holds going forward. Lastly, I'd like to stress one thing. As Andrew has stated, we're only left with 2 days. We would like to encourage you to use your phone wherever you are. Pull up your national ID, dial *16565 hash, put in your NIN number, and then repeat that same process. Select a broker. SPG Securities would be happy to help you, and use that 20 million cap if it's necessary. Buy the 5 million, buy the 500,000 that you can afford, and we hope to see you on the AGM side next year when MTN is actually speaking to its shareholders, not just as a subscriber, but a shareholder, and beholden that management gives you a return. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see a comment here from quite a number of people indicating that they wish MTN could extend the IPO to end of November, given that most Ugandans are salary earners and they're waiting for 30th November to get money to invest. All right, and before we go back to the moderator, maybe as we give the closing remarks, we can give a clarity on a few of these questions that have consistently come up, especially this one in regards to debt repayment plan. Given MTN's current large debt, why isn't some of the money raised from the IPO going to debt repayment? I think that's a worried potential investor. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay, just quickly regarding debt. Our debt levels today is, almost less, or pretty much about $100 million. Last year in December, we had 388. Maybe just to add some context, when many read our accounts, they see a figure higher than that, our net debt. But that includes what you call finance leases. When we rent our towers from ATC for 10 years, we disclose in our books that contract 10 years in adverse discounting, and that will be part of our net debt. But if you're looking at that old school debt, that's the debt from the banks. Last year we only borrowed $100 million to fund the license, to fund capex, and also it has 110 billion, which is revolving credit facility that we can use as and when we need it. So, one, I'm trying to give you context. So our debt, today as I speak, is less than 370. If you look at our profit after tax, that's about 370. So the debt we have today to pay over 5 years is pretty much close to our profit after tax. And if you look at our asset level, we're not over-geared. Even if you look at the two parameters for debt, net debt to EBITDA, which is below 1, and you shouldn't be above 2.5, and debt service coverage ratio that we have 4.5, you should be above 1.5. We can actually borrow more. So we are not over-geared in form of debt. And then the other question, why don't we use the funds to pay debt? We don't need them. Imagine you're our new shareholders. We need to expand another $1 trillion after the 3 years we've promised. Then we come to you as shareholders and say, please bring money. Debt is good. It's cheaper. it lowers your cost of funding, your weighted average cost of capital. It's cheaper. For anyone, if you have an organization that can pay you great dividend, they can get debt and expand and give you more revenue, So we're not going to use the funds as we mentioned. 96% is MTN International. They are selling 20%. It's like if you went to South Africa 10 years ago, you bought a house, now you're selling it. Where do you want that money to go?
Thank you, Andrew. I think we have a few minutes left in terms of our session for today. And I had some questions around how does money then come back to shareholders? I think you've touched on that. If you're making revenue 2 trillion and you make a net profit of about 330, that is what you're guiding for this year. Just to confirm that you're willing to distribute 60% of the profits to the shareholders, yes or no?
Yes. So just to be clear, so our medium-term guidance is that we shall distribute at least 60% of the profit after tax to our shareholders. To this year, 2021, already we have paid out 2 interim dividends, which is 230 billion, which, if you look at our forecast profit after tax, is would be 73% payout ratio. However, the profit after tax in our books has a once-off adjustment of a 50 billion license fee. When you exclude that to get our real profit after tax, which is around 375 billion, your payout ratio is still above 60. And we still have one final dividend payment to make in March. So living with our promise of at least 60% dividend distribution, as we speak today, for this year, we're already above that, and we'll make one final payment. I can't tell you how much until it's approved by the board and AGM next year. Thank you.
If I may add something, it's very interesting to see how the perspective changes from which angle, which side of the table you're sitting on. Our existing shareholders believe that we don't take enough debt, okay? Because they feel that we should take more debt so that we pay more dividend. So I'm sure the day our prospective new investors become shareholders on the first AGM, they will tell us, Wim, you need to take more debt. Andrew, you need to go to the bank and get more debt so that you can increase the dividend payment. It is a different way of looking at the business, okay? Andrew said 370 billion debt, okay? It's 1 year of profit. It is 8% of the value of our company. It's like you own a house that is worth 500 million shilling and you have 40 million shilling debt. Would that be a lot of debt? 40 million and your house is worth 500. You would, if you have 200 or 300 million debt and your house is worth 500, you might say, that's maybe a bit tight. 40 million debt and your house is worth 500 million. And on top of that, you're renting out your house and it generates you 40 million rent a year. That's the situation MTN Uganda is in. Any existing shareholder feels you should take on more debt, at least 100, and pay out more to us as shareholders. I'm waiting for the first AGM, and I'm sure they're going to ask me that question.
Oh, we ask them for.
Thank you very much. The last one before I conclude, I'll conclude with just a few personal questions. The last one is from us as institutional investors. There is this development around environmental, social, and governance. For an individual investor, it might be new terminology, but for us as institutional investors, we have come to appreciate that businesses that we invest in that score highly in those areas tend to also return a lot of value to shareholders. I think in previous engagements, you have talked about the work that you're doing in the foundation. We have seen also the governance of the board. So just in 1 minute, on governance, are we, minority shareholders, are we going to get a board seat?
Okay, I'll pick up the governance issue. If you look today as MTN Uganda, we have various board committees. Obviously, we have REMCO, which deals with the HR and appointments. We also have the Audit and Risk Committee, and then the main board. Obviously, now that we'll be listed, all this is going to be revamped in line with better and improved corporate governance, where we have more independent non-executive directors, and also increase the number. As we mentioned in our prospectus, we committed to do this within a year, and this is already a work in progress. Remember, as a soon-to-be listed company, we're already a subsidiary of a listed company. Corporate governance is in our DNA, so you can be assured of that.
Let me take on the ESG, because I think that's what you're referring to. So one very important contributor for us is the carbon footprint. We have embarked on a very ambitious plan with UMEME, ATC, the tower co company, American tower co company, and ourselves to massively invest in electrification so that we reduce the number of diesel generators. And as we are sharing our sites with Airtel and other operators, the same generator is running, so we're also getting a lot of efficiencies out of that, but also a drastic reduction in carbon footprint. I think for international investors, they are very, very, very passionate. You go to an American investor and you cannot prove that ESG is on top of your agenda, they don't even consider investing in your stock. So also for us, it is important that we do take that into account, and we do take the right initiatives to reduce. It is important for everybody.
Thank you very much for that confirmation. The last one is a bit more personal. It has been quite a journey. So I have one question. Are we expecting a book to come out very soon, just to talk about what you probably expected going through the process of an IPO? And secondly, would you do it again if you knew what you know now?
Well, I would have done it earlier. Okay, I would have done it 5 or 10 years ago if we, as MTN, would have known what we know now. I think an IPO for a company like ours, it's good to do it in 2021. It would probably even have been better if we have done it in 2011, but never. It's never too late to do it. So it's definitely something amazing. It has been a very exciting journey. Today, actually, Andrew, is our last day. We have been on the road for 6 weeks, and I want to, take this opportunity to thank the MTN team and all our partners who have pulled this together. We have a few of them sitting here with us. They have done an extraordinary job. We have done 250, and I think it's an underestimate, it might even be a little bit more, of roadshows, virtual engagements, physical engagements in Kampala, in Kisoro, in Moroto, in Arua, in Busia, you name it. MTN leadership executive team have been there. We've also gone to Nairobi. We have really taken a lot of time and effort to preach the MTN IPO gospel, if I may call it like that. Our brokers, SBG, Crested, Darren Blair, everybody has been really involved from morning till evening. It was a tough journey because it required a lot of education. The number one concern that we had, and it was unfortunate also confirmed, is we needed to do a lot of education. This is the first IPO in Uganda for the last 7 years. It is not something that happens every day. There is a lot of interest, but also a lot of need for education and understanding how capital markets work. So I think we have been on a mission much more about financial education than actually on a sales pitch of selling our shares. But it has been a very exciting journey. We'll show you the video. I'm still too young to write a book. Let's wait for that for a few more years. Of course, the IPO will be one chapter among some other chapters that are also as exciting. But no, it has been an amazing engagement with thousands and thousands of potential investors, most of them also customers. We've had a lot of feedback from customers, a lot of interesting comments, concerns. It has been really a wonderful journey for us for the last 6 weeks. And we, on this note, I will end. We do hope that a lot of them will become our shareholders. They will become our boss. Andrew, myself, and the whole executive team will be accountable to our shareholders. We will have to answer all the difficult questions on the AGM, where every shareholder will be treated equally. Whether you have 1 share or you have 1 million shares, you will be entitled to ask your questions and hold the management accountable for the performance of the company. We cannot be held accountable for the share price. The share price is offer and demand. The broker didn't tell us, but I think he should clarify. The share price is not within our control, but the performance of the company, that is what the management stands for. We believe in this company. Myself, Andrew, the whole executive team, we have bought shares and we continue buying today, Sunday and Monday, because we do believe in the future of this company, and you will hold us accountable for the performance of MTN Uganda in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for the education that you have given us today. I believe our members feel more empowered to make a more better informed decision today. So to our members, keep curious, keep learning, go. You have, of course, a few days left. Read the prospectus and decide and act. Your decision is entirely your responsibility, but you owe that to yourself, yeah? Thank you, Dennis, our moderator today. Thank you, Wim. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, William, for giving us your weekend. Today is a Saturday. You could be somewhere resting and relaxing, but you're here with us today. And to those who are listening to us, our members and the rest of the public, look out for our NSSF Financial Literacy Program. You can go to the website and register. We run 6-month-long classes where we get to talk about money and how to make money and how to make money work for you. We like saying that we spend so much time, over 17 years in school, learning how to get a job and earn, but no one really puts us in a class and tells us how to manage this money. Once I've earned, then what? So that's what we do in the classes. We have monthly webinars. Check out our online social media pages. Thank you very much for being with us today. Have a beautiful weekend.
Applying for MTN Shares is simple if you use your MTN number. Remember, you need to have created your Securities Central Depository (SCD) account before you apply. Got one? Great! Now you're ready to apply. First, dial *165*65#. Select 2 to apply for MTN Shares, then select 1 to apply for MTN Shares for self. Type 1 to confirm your SCD account details, and select the number of shares to apply for. Enter your mobile money PIN to authorize the transaction. Then press 1 to confirm you've read the prospectus and accept the terms and conditions. You will receive a confirmation message and your application ID will be sent to you. It's that easy. The entire process using MTN Momo is free of charge.